Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Finding Freedom. In this episode, we are going to cover a lot of things, starting with, the forthcoming downfall of the job market thanks to AI, how Star Trek might be real in the coming future, and how people just don't understand certain things, right? And they don't pay attention to those that truly care because they're careless. So therefore, because they care less, they should be careful when certain things are trying to get their attention with their words. So let's get into it, shall we? So what do I mean by the downfall of certain jobs? Well, when it comes to AI is getting rid of, a lot of jobs. I just saw a podcast on I think it was YouTube, Diary of a CEO or whatever. The gentleman on there was talking about how if you're a paralegal or anything like that, AI could do your job for you. So therefore, paralegals are no longer going to be needed, so on and so forth, in the legal department, right? When it comes to things like triage, if you use ChatGPT, there is a medical GPT feature in there, and it can help you triage certain things. If you're in the financial section or the financial industry, right, and you're in charge of, let's say, analysis or research, you don't need that feature or person anymore, i.e., companies get to save more money by firing your ass, so on and so forth, because ChatGPT has a GPT that does market research for you when it comes to finances and everything else like that. Now, it cannot strongly suggest that you invest in anything. That's based upon your own free will, but it can present the facts to you in the way it acquires the information by scraping the internet in order to acquire that information and then present it to you because it's in the public domain. Now, it's very interesting because people don't understand words. See, coffers sound like coffins, so on and so forth. So eventually everybody figures things out. However, when it comes to AI, they never paid attention to the Matrix. And what do I mean by, the world of Star Trek is coming, right? Well, in Star Trek, there's a group of extraterrestrials, so on and so forth, etc., entity, whatever you want to call it, called the Borg. They are the cyborg, so on and so forth. So for you DC fans, do you remember Cyborg, so on and so forth? Very similar to that. Now, they have different attachments. They have AI and robotics attached to them, but they still kind of look human, so on and so forth. And it's very interesting, right? Because, Elon Musk wants to implant chips into people's heads. Well, if that chip is able to pick up on a frequency such as Bluetooth or Wi-Fi or the satellite networks that work with your cell phone, then it would be able to get hacked. And then those people could ideally become cyborgs or robots, get woken up about everything else that's going on in the world, because there are actors and nefarious people or characters out there that can utilize that information, present it to the individuals in which they said they were trying to help, tell them the truth, and now their gratitude, right, as the word says, as they say, right, be grateful, whatever, all this other stuff, right, will get turned into anger. Right? And this is what played out with the Borgs, right? They realized certain things, and so they had conflict with the other people within, Star Trek, so on and so forth. And in Star Trek, you have Captain Kirk, Captain Picard, and all Spock, and all these other people. Now, what's going to happen in the future? Well, there's going to be more discovery of things. Remember, things are not always invented or created. Sometimes they're discovered. See, when we came to America, they discovered there was more people here, right? So on and so forth. When we ventured off to different locations, we ventured and found out that there was people there, right? And then those people had beliefs and religion and spirituality, or whatever you want to call it, or whatever. Some believed in magic. Some believed in gods. Some believed in one god. Some believed in multiple gods. And, it's very interesting because everything that I see going on right now is a hindrance to the site in which people still do not understand certain things. So let's talk about it. If AI requires certain energy levels, then they're going to push for energy factories, nuclear energy, so on and so forth, to get built so that they can do less work. Now, why do people that have a lot of money seem like they don't work a lot? Well, because some people that have a lot of money that don't need to work all the time know how to keep their mouth shut on certain things. These would be company secrets, whatever the case may be, right? And those who can't will work for 5 days out of the week and get 2 days off, right? So think about it. Why do you plead the fifth, right? The Fifth Amendment, so on and so forth. See, the people that designed the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, so on and so forth, were not dumb people, nor were they stupid, but they were hoping for someone to, for something, for a group of individuals to see what is actually valuable. So if you don't understand time and everything else, and you don't take care of the things that are brought into your world, well, then you're going to have to work for it, right? And then, of course, you're going to say, oh, I need a day off because I need to rest, so on and so forth. But didn't you go to sleep last night and wake up this morning? Yes or yes? Did you not go to sleep last night and wake up this morning? Right? Or did you not wake up in a new day? Now, if you cannot keep a secret, if you cannot figure out what's important, if you cannot understand what's valuable, then you will have to continue to work because people think they made it to a certain plateau in life, and then it's only at the end do they see the beginning on what they should have been paying attention to. See, most people aren't satisfied. This goes for both people, but some people are satisfied. And then some people say, you're enough. And then some people think they're not enough. And then some people are just good enough, if you know what I'm saying, right? Because they have just enough, right? But what happens when they want to acquire more? Then the nefarious actors want to see exactly, precisely, specifically what they would do in order to acquire those things. Now, why do I say acquire? Well, it's funny because in different temples, so on and so forth, they have acquire, so on and so forth. But people don't understand that yet, so let's keep going. So, when you don't know how to plead the fifth because you just want to gain access to everything, because freedom, right, is a marketing ploy, right? We need workers, so let's tell them they can live freely here, and then we get them to work. And then when we need money, we'll just have them work more, make money, so on and so forth, etc. But what are they doing in actuality? They're using your energy. So why does E equals mc squared? Well, energy equals matter times c to the second power, c representing the speed of light, so on and so forth, times itself, right? So do you not matter, so on and so forth, right? Because you're a matter filled with mass, or mass of matter, whatever the case may be, however you want to phrase it. When you look into a mirror, so on and so forth, you may only care about yourself or others or whatever, so on and so forth. So they want to see where your energy goes, right? Because if they see where your energy goes, that's where energy flows. Now, these are all words, rhythm, and rhyme. However, when people want to mess with time, And then, of course, be treasonous traitors of trust, right? They don't understand why they get called a cross, right? Or why X marks the spot, right? So why is a crucifix in the shape of a T, right? Because what is treason but turning against the very group that is supposed to be taking care of you? So you do something to, well, go against them, etc., a nefarious act, so on and so forth, treason, so on and so forth, because you want to acquire access, knowledge, information, control, and power, so on and so forth. Or should I say, you want power and control, so you want access to intelligence. Weird how on our PCs we have AI. So let's keep going, shall we? Now, if you don't know how to take care of these stupid suckers, right? That's 2 S's, right? We'll give you Saturday and Sunday off so you can spend time with your family, right? Because babies have a pacifier that they suck on, so on and so forth, right? And they're not as intelligent as you are. But if you do not know how to take care of it and then you mistreat it, well, then what is that going to happen down the line, right? Because if you don't know how to take care of a stupid sucker, then you're going to need to work 5 days a week, and then maybe you'll figure it out on Saturday or Sunday or something like that. If not, we'll start all over on Monday so you could buy whatever it is with your money, and then you could keep asking why every fucking single day, right? Because at the end of every day is why, right? Duh, so on and so forth. Anyways, if you put duh and why together, it spells day, dingleberries. So, now that we have some clarity, right? If you haven't seen my last video, you should probably watch it. Now, if other people want to attempt to do certain things, it's only going to get worse as time goes on. See, we had movies like Star Wars, we had movies like Star Trek, hell, we have TV shows, so on and so forth, right? But people don't see that because they don't think it's real, right? So they have different things and they say different things like, oh, Israel, right? So on and so forth. Is it real, right? Or is it Israel? I don't know. Or is it Azrael? So on and so forth. I don't know. But if you don't start putting 2, 2, 2, or 3, 3, 3, or whatever damn numbers you want to use, or letters together, then you will never acquire the means in order to continue to go forth and multiply. Now, why do you want to go forth and multiply? Well, how do you multiply what you have? You can invest it, your time, so on and so forth, your energy, right? Your actions, I guess that spells T, so on and so forth. However, you can also do other things, but then, of course, now we know what you're interested in, so we're going to charge you interest, so on and so forth, right? And then we're going to make it more difficult. This is how the system is set up in certain vicinities, dynamics, areas, complex systems, adaptive systems, so on and so forth, right? So if you don't care, well, then you will have to learn how to care. And if you don't care about one thing, then you'll continue working and working and working, trying to acquire money, right, to pay for the things that you give energy to, that you're going to have to pay interest on because you don't care. Now, interest is a term that's used in many fields, such as marketing, right? See, if you do the organic thing and you see what works, right? See what people are interested in, what they pay attention to, i.e. the interest graph, you can then be a better, more efficient marketer when you spend people's money on paid media because you target people based upon their interest, right? Now, if you don't understand that, I'm sorry. Now, what's going on? Well, in order to get in front of somebody, you have to add in a commercial, right? So we're going to call that advertising, right? Because you got to add more letters to it, so on and so forth. If you make it simple, people still won't get it, so on and so forth. So we make it complex, we make it look like a big word, and people think it's difficult or easy, so on and so forth, right? And so as your time is being procured by a video or a thing that it's aesthetically pleasing to the eye, so on and so forth, they add in advertisements, right? And those advertisements that speak to certain interests that you have, right, are put there to see if you would take an action on the limited time that you have, which is always said in an advertisement for a limited time offer, so on and so forth, etc., to take action on that thing, or if it will pique an interest, right? Or if it will plant a seed of interest, PSI, right? Air pressure that you put into a tire, also. So, if that's not interesting, think about this, right? PSI is the pressure that is measured when you take air pressure from a tire. What's the PSI, right? You know, PS, I love you, so on and so forth, etc., so on and so forth. But then what is love? And then, of course, if you do it backwards or forwards, people always try to figure it out and mess it up anyways. So who cares about that, right? What's like? Well, I'm kind of like you and you're kind of like me. So maybe if we work together, we can see this thing, right? What's going on, right? But nobody wants to do that either. So then we have corporations, companies, organizations, businesses, and everything else. And then we see if you guys could get along working together to acquire money as you work together to pay for the things that you're interested in. Marketers are not stupid. So while you have your time consumed by whatever is in front of you, we add in plus sign, right? We add in a advertisement, right? And that is for a limited time, and they have to pay for that, right? Because they have to acquire your time. They also have to acquire a spot in a video or in a newspaper or in media, so on and so forth, whatever. Take away the M, jumble up the letters, and it spells idea. Anyways, so on and so forth. So now, when you are watching a video, you get upset over the advertisements, right? But you want to add things to your life because you heard go forth and multiply, right? And what is an addition symbol but knocked over, and now you got to multiply. So it looks like an X, right? Or a little dot. Or sometimes they just put it together, and that means to multiply, not to add, right? So on and so forth. But most people don't get that either. So we'll keep going. So what's the purpose of a subtraction symbol? See, there's a line that you shouldn't cross. See, when they talk about the crucifixion, it has a T, right? Do not add, right? And then there's a line that people always want to step over, and then they keep going, keep going, keep going, and then they cross the line. Now, when you cross the line, you show your true intentions and you show your lack thereof understanding, and then you keep pushing the boundaries, and then they tell you you should go to therapy, and then the therapist, starts with a T, tells you you should learn how to establish boundaries, but nobody knows how to respect those boundaries. So we start all over again, right? And then they need to have further explanation. So they go to a psychologist who is a doctor. Now, the doctor, hell, you don't need A's in class to figure out that begins with a fucking D, so on and so forth. So if you even got a D in a class, even if you were a faithful person that you thought the school system was going to work and it didn't work for you, so you got an F, right? Other people that are good boys and girls that, well, are too good of being good boys and girls got their A's and B's. Some of us got C's and D's, so on and so forth. And some of us who got C's and D's understand credits and debits and credits, so on and so forth. And if you're a comic book lover, you have DC Comics, right? Now, DC Comics was a competitor of Marvel Comics, right? So on and so forth. But what's marvelous about the comic books, right? Now, you will spend money on the comic books because they're entertaining, so on and so forth, and they tell a story in a specific way, and they provide, well, some type of education because not everybody learns the same way. So, if you're not understanding what's going on, well, then let me go further. See, if you're disgruntled because of the advertisements, because they had to add it into the video that you are watching, we're going to see what you actually value. So we'll say we'll charge you more to avoid the advertisements, right? So on and so forth. Now, when children come into your life, you may hate them, but you always have a choice. And when you make the choice to subtract that thing that you knew was coming, but you decided to get rid of it anyways, you're showing your true intentions, if you ever seen Cruel Intentions, and where your interests lie. So if you cannot respect life or want to bring life and treat it well, well, then the vicious cycle will happen all over again. See, in other videos, I had something called a nosy Nancy, which is a no-no, right? And I mentioned how she's in politics, right? She gets the information. She understands how things are acquired. She tells that to her hubby or her partner, whatever. She may be a lesbian. Who cares? So on and so forth. And then they make money with that idea, right? They get the bright idea to make money with it. Now, why is it that William Shakespeare said, "What's in a name, that which we call a rose, that smells so sweet?" Well, roses also come in different colors. However, roses were supposed to be a symbolic form, like flowers, that are given to an individual that you care for, so on and so forth, right? But then the rose doesn't matter. Does the color matter? If the plant doesn't matter, so on and so forth, etc. I told someone this the other day. The book of life was once understood to be the book of leaves, right? Because if you can't take care of a plant, how can you take care of something that was planted? Hence the seed reference, right? And if you can't take care of certain things, then nefarious actors and good people will use positive and negative energy to turn the world against you if you know too much. Now, what happens if you know too much? Well, intelligent folks, right? If you know too much, well, then they get upset because they get a little bit scared. Now, why do they get scared? Because maybe they'll lose their power, control, the attention, and probably your interest in information, ideas, and everything else. So, when people say, "Hey, I'm trying to help you in a certain way," or you're bitch, moaning, and complaining, BMC, right? If you're bitching, moaning, and complaining about something, and somebody offers help, and then you say, "I don't need your help," then why did you open your mouth in the first place? Why don't you be more specific and precise with the opportunity presented at hand instead of being specific, precise, overtly discussing or overtly communicating something to someone about someone else, but then when somebody else comes to assist you, you say no, right? Now, I remember I had this person that was decently friends with me. I don't know where we're standing right now. We'll just call it an acquaintance for now. And people always act confident when they think they have leverage. Now, if you study physics, a leverage would use like a lever, a fulcrum point, so on and so forth, to gain more power, so on and so forth, to make whatever the heavy object is that they're trying to move, right? And so I started to use certain language in order to see how well they understood that I was trying to assist them, so on and so forth. So I asked them a couple questions because it was a chaotic environment and there was nefarious characters, actors, and everything else there. And I said, hey, are you good? So on and so forth. Or do you need me to stay? That's one. I'm good. Okay. Are you sure you don't need me to stay? Yes. That's two, right? Because remember, I mentioned in my last video, if you're so sure about being interested in something and you want to fuck around and find out, you're going to need insurance. So are you sure you're okay? I already asked one question. Now I'm asking the second one. Yes. That's two yeses. Okay. I'm going to ask this a different way. Are you positive, right? Mathematical term, right? Are you positive that you're sure you're okay, you don't need me to stay, you don't need assistance? Yes, that's three. Okay. Do you have a car? Yes. And that's four yeses. Confirmation. Anyways, after all those yeses, I said, okay, bye, peace, adios, whatever, right? And I left, right? Don't know what happened to this individual, but they're doing fine, so on and so forth. Because if they have leverage, then they will communicate that leverage with the amount of yeses to all the questions that are being presented, even though they're not picking up on the context clues within the questioning or the statements that are being heard. So when people see certain things, right, because they need to work to see something, right? That's why we have the CW, right? Cash works, or cash rules everything around me, right? Cream works, cash works, whatever, right? You work for bread. I guess that's why they have the WB, so on and so forth, etc., right? Because you will bitch about work, but then you will work for bread. Think about it, right? It works forwards and backwards. So if you don't understand the acronyms, we'll give you numbers. If you don't understand the numbers, we'll try to emphasize that with letters and numbers, and we'll call that mathematics, so on and so forth. And then we'll make it more complex like calculus. If you don't know how to sign, well, then we'll teach you mathematics and we'll teach you the difference between sine, cosine, and tangent. Because some people can go on a tangent without understanding what matters, right? And then if they need help or they want to get an apartment or whatever, they need a cosigner, so on and so forth, so on and so forth. So then what happens? Then people end up alone, and because they don't get satisfied with other things, they require other things. So you get a pet. And when you get a pet, the pet doesn't communicate one way. It communicates like a baby. So you have to understand nonverbal communication in order to have friends with the partner that you have acquired now, right? Because you wanted to acquire something, and then as time went on, you realized, I don't want these things because of X, Y, and Z, not realizing what was important. So now you have a pet, right? Whether that's a dog, a fish, a cat, a snake, a gerbil, a bird, whatever the case, so on and so forth. Now, it's so interesting that the downfall of man is going to be their own doing. See, a long time ago, I said, don't be an Icarus. Why? Because I was trying to say, don't be curious, right? Icarus. Don't break down the word, please, by all means. If you want to be really interested, be really curious and keep getting closer and closer. Now, what happens to a fly, mosquito, or whatever when they fly too close to a light bulb that's designed to burn them, right? They die. Hence why I see how certain things can be the downfall of people that are too curious, because they're into something. They cause things to happen. They get closer and closer. They push the boundaries. Then they get burnt, zapped, whatever, right? And what's interesting is, like, they have cancer. Now, what's interesting about cancer is that it's a zodiac sign. But what is cancer, right? Can you survive? I don't know. Let's find out, right? So the medical community will give you cancer, or somebody will give you cancer, or you will end up with cancer, so on and so forth, right? But then they will give them cash, or they need cash to cure the cancer, but that takes time. The thing is, by the time they catch it, quote unquote, it's too late. So are you stage 1, 2, 3, or 4? Right? These are like asking the questions I did earlier. Are you sure you want me to? Are you good? Do you need me to stay? No, I'm good. That's 1. Okay. Are you sure? So on and so forth. Do you have insurance? Yeah, that's 2. Right? Okay. Are you positive? Yeah, that's 3. So on and so forth. Scout's honor. Right? That's 3. 3 strikes, you're out of there. Right? Then you want a ball, right? So on and so forth, etc. Using sports reference here, right? Because if a ball doesn't count as a strike, so you could at least ball or foul and you're still in the game, right? So we're going to go a 4th time and we're going to ask yes. And when you swing instead of bunt or whatever the case may be, then it's going to be interesting, because if you're not stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and now you're at stage 4, well, then you're terminal, right? And then they have the movie, The Terminal List, that they put out on Amazon Prime. So if people don't understand AP, that is, then you will not understand everything else, so on and so forth, right? Now, if you're not understanding the philosophical context of this conversation, or the psychological ideologies that I've been trying to explain within the context of this time that I've taken from you, those who are consuming this, because it gives you a certain feeling or an idea to try to attempt something, well, keep going, because certain people have shiny object syndrome, right? Now, everybody wants to go, ooh, ah, so on and so forth, right? And then when you sleep with somebody or you look at something that you think is valuable, you go, ooh, ah, whatever the case may be, quoting Eddie Murphy, so on and so forth. So, by all means, keep going, because since people don't understand this, I will say it for you. When Marines start showing up and getting really close to people, something might happen, so they're there for protection. Didn't you notice in the political race, both Kamala and Trump had Marines, apparently, Marines, former Marines, next to them as their VP? Why is that? Because some people don't know what they're doing, right? And then, of course, they need somebody to educate them on what the hell's being said, because we have to break it down Barney style to show you what's actually valuable instead of teaching you another way, right? And because people don't understand things, we'll just get out of the way, and then we'll put somebody that was trained, that knows how to protect life, so on and so forth, in their position. So, just food for thought there, right? It's so weird how that happens, because I noticed that the airlines will give you free flight and you could skip the line if you're in uniform. But if you're not in uniform, right, then you cannot have those privileges, right? If you're a veteran or whatever and you're not in uniform, you will not have those privileges, right? And one of the things that people do sometimes is not wear their uniform, so you don't know where they're at. See, people are prone to show off certain things because they are proud individuals and they become prideful. Everybody likes to use their words and do certain things when they get emotionally distraught when they hear certain words. So if I went to somebody in Air Force or Space Force or Chair Force, whatever the fuck you want to call it, right, and I say you're slow, that's why we give you a big budget, so you could have toys to make you faster, so on and so forth, like jets, planes, electronics, so on and so forth, etc., and live a cushy lifestyle. And we're supposed to trust you with certain individual people's lives, then you will understand the concept of not taking things personally, but understanding how to be playful with your words. Now, if somebody wishes to interject because they want to be a smart ass or an essay, so on and so forth, so on and so forth, well, then you're going to find out why I'm stating it this way. See, the Veteran Affairs Office is only good for but so many things. But when there's nefarious actors in power, or social engineering and social proof is established, they forget about their job and they listen to who's in power. So if somebody's trying to get help from Veteran Affairs and they don't want to do their job, and then they get upset because those people lost their jobs that didn't want to do their jobs to help veterans out, so on and so forth, well, then they could go bitch and moan to somebody else. And then they will go look for, as the song says, you will find others to trust. Because the last thing you want to do is be a treasonous traitor of trust. If someone has your trust, right? This is a financial term as well. This is why they have a tax haven called a trust, right? But if you go against the trust, then you won't get the benefits or the funds in the trust to have fun, right? Just like when Prince Harry got married, he was attached to a royal trust that paid out dividends, etc. But because he created a division because of the things that occurred, he got kicked out of the royal family, and he had to find other means and ways in order to acquire cash to see the things that captured his attention, so on and so forth. Does that make sense, right? Because I'm going to do this backwards. In high school, HS, right? Attention is one of those things you should give, right? But what captures your attention, right? So high school, attention, class, right? If you can't figure it out, then you have to go to a college or a university, right? The colleges are a part of the university. And if we are not a direct reflection of our universe, then what are we, ladies and gentlemen? So, if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and smash that like button. Go ahead and subscribe. Do whatever you need to. Till next time, my friends, take care. Mwah. Chef's kiss. Bye-bye.